Okay, actually, that's really Jerry's job with the guitar work. I'm just a hack here. But what are you going to do? Hey, welcome. Good to see you guys out there. Let me put up the chat here if you guys have coming in. Looks like we've got great Jerry, Jerry fans in there. We got Brian Hamilton, Ash is in there. Great to see you, Rick, Barbara, all of you for joining me. This is going to be great. As everybody knows, and I'll get to more about Jerry in a minute. He's a television producer, showrunner, a crazy travel addict, and we're going to learn about his days as a rock star. I just wanted to, try to show him up a little bit with the guitar. Anyway, I want to give you, first of all, some basic, how does this platform work? And I'm also curious to see how many of you, I'm going to pop up a poll a minute here and see how many of you have been here before. So you'll see in the right column a little poll that will say, hey, who's new here, who's not? But here's how it works. So you see the chat column in the right. Certainly chat with us, chat with each other. That's what the whole idea is. We'd like to know where you're calling in from. I mean, we've had probably 20 different countries over the last 4 episodes of people coming in. And the other thing is, if you want to ask a specific question, make sure we don't forget it. There's a little icon to the right of the chat window that if you click on it, it says, from chat mode, it'll go to Q&A mode. And then what that'll do is highlight that question, so make sure we see it. The other thing is, if we freeze or the video or audio gets jumpy or something, there's a little red button up at the top, and that will allow you to reconnect, and hopefully it'll smooth that out. This is technology, it's fallible, but we'll do the best we can. So if you have a question, use Q&A mode. If you do find a little bit of technology jerkiness in the video, try reconnecting, and hopefully we'll get that all out. So I just want to, before we get Jerry on, I want to just check in with you, and I want you guys to all check in with each other. How are you feeling today? Every day, obviously, it seems like we just can't get enough bad news. But there's always a little sprinkling of hope, and it's hope that we need for sure. I mean, unemployment is low, division is high. The plague of fear, uncertainty, and doubt casts over us like a gray cloud, kind of like the May gray or the gloom of June here in Southern California coast. But I ask all of you, it's tough. Check in with each other. It's look for the light, see what's right, and sing or dance to your favorite song rather than dwelling on what's wrong. There's a poem. I mean, a rhyme. Anyway, but it's okay not to be okay. It's tough. We all don't know when things are going to get back to normal. And maybe some of you in there, they're already getting a little bit more progressed back to normal than we're seeing in here. But I know in the rest of the world, Turkey is still shut down. UAE is. I heard from Georgia, the country of Georgia, not the thing. They're starting to open up, but just talk about it. Talk with each other. Pick up the phone. If there is one thing I can say that this pandemic has done, is brought a little bit of a humanity intervention for us to allow us to maybe reconnect with each other, to identify what's important and maybe what's not. But anyway, this is our journey. We're all in it together, and we're cruising. And some of you, I know, may be able to get off that plane earlier, but anyway, this is Journeys. And the whole idea of this came up about a month ago, a little bit more. And it was like to do a weekly live stream event where I have met so many cool people all over the world in the 80 some odd countries that I've been to. I'm amazed that thanks to technology, that we're able to still be in touch. Sometimes they're entrepreneurs. I love how I am about wine, vintners, chefs, musicians, authors, speakers, and just ordinary people doing extraordinary things in their own towns, in their own villages, their countries. So that's kind of was the idea to do this. And up to date, this is the 5th episode, but what we talk about here is possibilities. What are the possibilities? And to share stories with each other, because stories, that's kind of one way we all kind of can get our minds off of maybe sometimes the harsh realities we're facing whenever we walk out the door and go to the supermarket or whatever. But we'll taste a little wine. Today I've got the Abstract. It's a blend. It's California and some cheese. So please, whatever your vice is, pull a cork, pour a glass of whiskey, make a juice, whatever. Enjoy. Sit down. We're gonna have it. I'm gonna share with you a little bit about how we've come along on this journey with just the webcast. So you guys may, for thus, let's go back to that poll. It looks like that 62%, so about 2/3 of you have this is your first Journeys podcast. So this will be a good reminder. And about 40%, it appears, that have been here before. So welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. But let's go to these I got to kind of cue this up here. We're going to show you a little bit about where we've been and maybe where we're going. Okay. So the Journeys podcast started on, I think April 27th was the first one here with Ronnie Borgiero, who is a motorcycle adventurer. And certainly he has spent 4 years, 100,000 miles traveling around the world. That was the first one. Then we went to Uruguay. So from South Africa, we traveled to Uruguay for Jeremy Craker and Elle West, who have been traveling by motorcycle in South America and just crossed into Uruguay when they shut the airport down, shut the border down. That's a great webcast as well. Then we went up to Ecuador with Dr. Jeff Sowles, who's an expat like Jerry. He's living, though, in Ecuador, in Cuenca. But this guy has an amazing story of many plights. It's also very good. And then last week we were in Turkey with Ryan Pyle, who's a TV host and extraordinary adventure Canadian, but finds his home these days in UAE. But by the time he was traveling from Ethiopia, transferring in Turkey, the UAE cut the country off. So he is holed up in a hotel there. And of course, today we've got Jerry D'Alessandro, and I'm very excited about that. So what I'm gonna let me tell you a little bit about Jerry. Okay, so this is the 5th one. By the way, all of those other stories that I've said, all those other countries are available. JourneysWebcast.com. You can replay the live streams. You don't see the chats, you don't see the polls and all that other stuff, but nonetheless, it's a great revisit. A lot of people are loving those replays. So Jerry D'Alessandro is a 20-year television veteran whose extensive list of credits include, shows you all know and love, including The Amazing Race, American Idol, The Weakest Link, and 11 more. And there's a 5940 is our end poll on that. And let's get this. I need to do. There we go. Okay. Jerry worked 11 seasons for the CBS hit show Big Brother. He most recently on that show was the co-executive producer. He was showrunner and director for 2 international travel shows, the Emmy-nominated NBC series, The Voyager with Josh Garcia, and the A&E series called Good Spirits. Jerry is definitely an incurable travel addict. He actually was in Georgia and Azerbaijan last year before I got there. He has produced television in 30 countries and 42 cities on 5 continents. Combined with his travels and adventures, Jerry counts 63. You're catching up to me, Jerry. Visited and crossing the often difficult borders of 3 places that I've yet to go. So he's beat me there: Iran, Bhutan, and Myanmar. But today, Jerry calls Merida, Mexico, in the Yucatan, his home. So join me, everybody, with welcoming Jerry D'Alessandro. Jerry!
What's up, Allan? How you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. You looking good there?
You look good too. Good to see
you. So Merida, Mexico. It's in the Yucatan. Where exactly is that, and what's going on down there?
So Merida is the capital of the Yucatan. It's about 30 minutes from the Gulf of Mexico, inland. Beautiful old colonial city. and been here about a year and a half now.
Year and a half. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we're showing a map right now so people can get an idea where it is. You know, the famous place in the Yucatan that people go to is Cancun, of course, but Merida is the capital of the state of Yucatan. And here's a good trivia question. How many states are there in Mexico? Do you know?
I don't know. I should know this, but I don't.
You know, that's why people always say, you know, you guys aren't the only United States. It is called the Estados Unidos de Mexico. And I may get this wrong. Maybe somebody in the chat room can confirm this, but I believe there are 34 states. And in my travels, I think I've done about 19 of them. But there's 34 states in Mexico. You're in Merida. As you look closer to that, you can see how close he is to Cuba, man. You could almost swim there, couldn't you?
It's a 1 hour flight, I believe. It's pretty, and actually Merida looks a lot like Cuba. It looks a lot like Havana. And I believe it's stood in for Havana in some movies.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying it wrong. It's Merida.
Yeah, Merida.
Merida. Oh, Merida.
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
There you go, Merida. Okay, so why does a guy who's living a great life in big television, producing amazing shows, probably doing pretty well, decide to pull roots and move to Mexico?
Well, my wife and I had been looking at places to move. We knew we wanted to retire early, and we knew we wanted to live abroad. So we just, in our travels, would check places out that were on expat lists. Actually, Cuenca, Ecuador, we were there. We checked that place out, which is beautiful, just really far, really not easy to get to. So we checked out a few places, and we came here, and it was I would say within the first day or two, we knew Merida was the place. It's just got a great vibe, and the people are amazing. So we now knew where we wanted to kind of retire to, and we bought a house this was in 2015, and I think we bought a house in 2016. Okay. And we used it as a vacation, rental, and put it on Airbnb, with the intention that one day we'd move here. And then one day just became much sooner than we expected. One day we just kind of said, what are we waiting for? Like,
let's go.
Let's just go.
Now, it's funny you bring this up because I remember a conversation you and I had some time ago about your Airbnb experience. You bought the place, invested in it. You had somebody pretty famous there. You kind of became very loved that place, right?
Yeah, actually, we heard from our property managers right after the film Moonlight won the Oscar for Best Picture. We heard from our property managers that Barry Jenkins had rented our place because he wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of having just won the Oscar. So yeah, he came to our house, and he was Instagramming the house and talking about the name of the house and how beautiful it was. And so that helped, our Airbnb business for a while, definitely.
Yeah. So what's the name of the house?
It's that house is Casa de Limonero, which is House of the Lemon Tree.
House of Limonero. So how is your Spanish, Jerry?
It's not good. I mean, it's better than it was before I moved here, but it's hard to learn a language at 50 years old. But I'm working on it.
So how is the scene with COVID in Merida right now? What's Mexico like? How is the community that you drift within and out of compared to the expats versus locals?
Well, Merida is, again, it's in the Yucatan, so all the states are kind of handled differently, I guess, just like the United States would be. And the Yucatan is very conservative when it comes to COVID. We actually are pretty locked down, much more than my friends in LA now. They're out on hiking trails now. They're at the beach. We can't go. All the parks are closed. All the beaches are closed. It is mandatory if you're out of your house, you have to have a mask on. They don't really, they kind of frown upon you being out at all. It's one person per car. You know, very tight at the supermarkets. You know, you can go, but it's, you know, a certain amount of people at once. So it's really locked down. I think they're afraid of having a disaster here. So they're really taking it very conservatively and seriously. So yeah, we're pretty locked down here.
And before that, how about with the expat community there versus locals? I mean, do you make? I mean, I know you're working on the Spanish, and the only way you can do that is to practice, right? We know that.
Yeah.
What's it like?
Well, the expat community here is great.
It's huge, right? Is it the biggest? Is it in Mexico, or is it down in what's the one?
The biggest might be San Miguel de
Allende. Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it's pretty big here, and we have a better social life here than we did when we lived in LA. I mean, you know, because almost everyone is retired and they've got time and they want to have fun and hang out, and so the social life's really good. We met a great group of people quickly, and now over time we've met even more. We have some really close friends here, and we have a lot of fun.
All right, well, let's dig into the fun back when you were just a little whippersnapper, man. I want to talk about you in the 20s on the Jersey coast, and about your plight, if you will, because you had dreams, you had stars in your eyes. Of being a rock star. And, you know, although looking at this guy right here on the screen, hardly looks like a rock star. He looks like maybe somebody preppied out in one of those New England schools. Maybe he's, Yale or Harvard. But, you know, if you really, then you go back and you go, wait a minute, now who is this dude? So yeah. What happened? I mean, you grew up in Jersey, right?
I did. I grew up in Jersey for 25 years.
And when did you get your first guitar?
I think I was 12. It was already in the house. It was 12 when I decided I wanted to be a rock star. So I picked up an old guitar we had at the house that back when my older brother thought he wanted to learn how to play guitar, but just never did. So we had this old guitar, and at 12, I decided I wanted to be a rock star. So I started playing that guitar.
So you started playing. Is this that guitar?
Oh, no. That guitar was terrible.
I'm sure it was a learner guitar for a 12 or 14-year-old, right? I mean, when I look at this picture, of course, it's black and white. I mean, you know, for a quick second, I think, oh, it's a Strat, but it's clearly not a Strat. But you know, it's purple or pink. I don't know let's move those things around so you can kind of see.
Pink.
It's pink. You're playing a pink guitar. So here's the real question: is you grew up in the clubs in Jersey, and your dream was to be a recording star. And tell us about a little bit about your old band. You know, who was your influence, and then tell us about your bandmates just briefly.
So we were growing up during the whole underground metal scene. I mean, it's a whole other story, but back when the early thrash scene was coming out of San Francisco, Metallica, Slayer, Exodus, all of those bands, that was who we were growing up with. You know, we kind of skipped right from Black Sabbath to those bands because they were coming out right when we were coming of age. So we got heavily influenced by the Metallicas of the world, and that's what we wanted to do. And we started the band when I was 14. And there wasn't a day or a second I wasn't in that band till I was 24. We were just 10 straight years. So and it was almost always the same guys. You know, we grew up together. We were in junior high together, high school together.
And what town in Jersey are we talking? What county? Whereabouts?
It was Essex County. It was a town called West Orange.
Oh, okay.
Which is about like 20 minutes outside of Manhattan with no traffic.
Our guest 2 episodes ago, Jeff Sauls, the doctor, he's also from West Orange. I believe West Orange, but he's the guy in Cuenca now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, swear to God. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We grew up with Manhattan skyline. We could see it from our town. We grew up in the shadow of the skyline. So growing up, and once the band started, we'd play the clubs in Jersey, and playing, New York was our backyard. So we were kind of considered a New York, New Jersey band. So we would play all those clubs. And
sure. And how did the about you got to deal with Atlantic Records? Let's talk about that. This was like you started at 14. Did you stop going to school? Were you like
No. We were we did this after school. We practiced 6 days a week, every day after school for like 4 hours a day, until our friend's mother would flick the lights. That meant it's time to stop.
Yeah.
And we would play every day. And then once we got out of school, we all had day jobs, and we would practice at night. And sometimes we'd have shows at night till we wouldn't get home till 4 a.m. We all had to get up and go to work the next day. It was, doing what we had to do. And the way it came about was, we just played and played and played, opened for everybody, and started to build a buzz. And then we did some showcases. We got some record company attention. And when I was 19, we got a deal with Atlantic that didn't go very far.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Atlantic comes to you, and they're gonna throw some cash in you. They're gonna put you in a studio. What are they gonna do? What do they promise you?
Well, so we started doing demos with like a real producer that Atlantic was paying for. We went and worked with Alex Perry-Ellis, who at the time was like the biggest metal producer out there. At his studio in Ithaca, we did some demos, and it was basically pre-production, for an album. And then somewhere in there, we were still gigging and playing around and writing new songs, and we actually opened for Nirvana.
You opened for Nirvana. Okay.
But they weren't, we opened for Nirvana, but they hadn't become Nirvana yet. So much so that when we got the gig, we were all kind of like, who? We had seen people wearing Nirvana shirts, but we didn't really know who they were. So we opened for them. We all hated them. We thought they were too noisy. But then about a month later, they became the biggest band in the world. Their album went to #1, Nevermind went to #1. And suddenly they were everywhere. They knew everyone knew who Nirvana was. And we, and a lot of other metal bands who weren't already the Metallicas of the world, we all just got dropped and forgotten about.
Why is that?
Because everyone wanted Seattle grunge. That's once something hits like that, everyone scatters to get their own. So all the labels wanted their Nirvana.
What was the name of your band?
Planet Dread. You can see it over my
Planet
shoulder
Dread.
there.
That's it. Oh, back there. Okay, so
Yeah.
so instead of Planet Dread, we get the Smashing Pumpkins and Soundgarden and
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that went, and then we kind of floundered around for another couple of years, still trying to get something going, and then I think we just all kind of got frustrated and started pointing fingers and fighting, and then we broke up. So it was all over by the time I was 24. That was it.
It was all over.
Everything I had worked so hard for.
Wow, that's crazy. So for 10 years you're with these guys, and did you start out just doing covers, or were you doing original music all along?
Pretty much originals from the very beginning, because the thing is, we were all self-taught. And when we started at 14, because we were self-taught, we were terrible. So we tried to learn covers, but we just weren't that good at it. So we played a couple of easy ones, but It was much easier for us to learn together how to write songs. And so it was pretty much originals for the whole time.
Cool. Now, okay, so you guys are fighting, was there any physical punches thrown, or was it just like fuck you or and goodbye, I'm gotta, nice to see you, wouldn't want to be ya? What happened?
I mean, there was physical stuff throughout our whole entire existence, a bunch of guys that close, stuff happens. But for the most part, it was just, this is over. That was it. Like, we had kind of a meeting, and I was in the band one day, and then all of a sudden the next day, after 10 straight years, it was done. That was it.
So part of your identity, Planet Dread, now was Planet Dead.
Yeah.
What did you do next? I mean, we know we know where this is going, but how did you eventually find yourself out in Hollywood?
Well, that first year was really tough. It was one of the hardest years of my life. I was 24 and I didn't go to college. I didn't prepare for anything else because things were happening. So it just was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. It's really going to happen. So when it was all over, I kind of had a little mini nervous breakdown at 24. I spent a lot of time like staring at walls in my room, not really sure what to do. And then over time, talking to my mom at the time, who was real supportive, it was just kind of like, well, what don't you want to do? Because I didn't know what I wanted, I didn't know what to do or what I wanted to do. She said, well, what don't you want to do? And I knew I did not want to get stuck in New Jersey at a 9-to-5 job. That was like, that would have been death to get stuck in Jersey at a 9-to-5 job. So I was able to kind of say, oh, okay, well, I know what I don't want, but I still didn't know what I wanted. I just figured, well, I don't want to get stuck in Jersey. Where have I always wanted to live? I always wanted to live in LA. I don't know why. I'd never been there. Just looked great on TV and in the movies and the music scene. And so I was like, well, I'm going to pack up my car and I'm going to move to LA and I'll figure it out when I get there. So that's what I did.
So you had no contacts out here. You just kind of packed it up and said, I'm going. Were you were thinking music at this point? The guitar? No.
I was so it's hard to explain, but I was so hurt and damaged that I couldn't even think of playing the guitar or trying to get another band. I was just like damaged from it.
Well, and I get that. I am sure a lot of our. By the way, I just wanted to just quick jump in and thank. I think it was Laura who said there's 32 states in Mexico, and I said 34, so I was wrong. 32 states in Mexico. So just to come back to that. So there you are. You're broken. You're emotionally distraught. I always say that at the end of every road. This is one of my Allan Karl mantras. At the end of every road, you always find a new beginning, and you did somehow in television. But before you tell us that, I want to show a little bit of some of your work because there's a lot of people on here, and we've got some questions coming in. So we're going to get to those in a bit. Thank you. And Mary, I love it that she's joining us here. An old friend, used to own a bookstore down in South Park. Anyway, let's show a little bit. I kind of picked out mostly your travel stuff because we do have a lot of adventures on this show. Okay, we have a lot of there. So this is. And by the way, the second scene in here, I want to call attention to everybody who's on here. You have to listen carefully. I picked it, but it could go right over your head. But this guy is picking up a cocktail and how he explains it as a journey. This is Jerry's travel work over the last few years.
My goal, create the greatest cocktail experiences the world has ever known.
It's like a journey with this drink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My mission, to seek out the awesome people and places that aren't in the travel guides. And now, I'm going to share my voyage with you. curious to know more about how classic American cars became synonymous with Cuban culture, I'm hitching a ride back in time and learn about Havana's classic car culture.
The main difference is that in Cuba, it's not only a tool, it's like a member of the family. Because
I'm in search of incredible people, unique spirits, and farm-fresh ingredients to inspire drinks that are nothing short of magic. Leave it to an iron chef to get 1,000,001 uses out of an elegant flower. I'm Matthew Biancanello, and I love to create amazing experiences.
Bangkok is a city that is open 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Sofrito is a richly flavored blend of herbs, spices, and finely chopped vegetables that serves as a base for many Latin dishes.
But what's the most important ingredient, would you say?
The most important ingredient is the love.
The love.
That's it.
You big mush, you. You big Cuban mush. So the beefsteak or the beef is one of our main ingredients.
Thailand is the land of smiles. And
I am so proud to live in Thailand. There's parties going on. Great food.
This is good spirits. As a cocktail chef, I put passion into each beverage I make. The Sheepshank Public House to see what I can find out about Thai whiskey. And I'm curious to find out what makes it different.
Bangkok probably has the most diverse range of street food in the world.
This magnificent place has put me in touch with my spiritual side. I could relax here all day. The green curry on the street amazed me, so I'm trying my hand at making my own. The challenge is balancing these bold flavors as well as the locals do. Tart citrus, spicy chilies, powerful herbs, and a salty shrimp paste, hoping that when it's strained, all that remains will be the good stuff. And for the piece de resistance, a durian syrup. As a final crown, a full lotus bud to represent the serene beauty of Thailand.
Our first alcohol with durian. This is new.
Really?
Yes.
That's my favorite thing to hear.
Cool stuff. I love it. You've got food, you've got exotic places, you've got culture. But a rock and roll star, dejected, emotionally drained, doesn't even want to pound out a power chord. How'd you get your first TV job, Jerry?
Well, I was in LA for 3 years before I got my first job. I was just trying desperately to get some sort of job in the entertainment business. And then I started 3 years in, I started dating a girl who worked at MTV. And she got me a production assistant job at MTV 3 years after I moved to LA.
You got a PA at MTV.
Yeah, so I was a production assistant, a 28-year-old production assistant, getting coffee for people. But now that I had my foot in the door, like I was in, there was no way I was getting kicked out. So I just, once I got in, I just asked a million questions, worked harder than everybody else. I got in earlier, I left later. I did whatever it took, and just worked my way up over 20 years.
Wow. So, what was the first real big gig? You know, that kind of put you, you know, from getting the staff or whoever coffee to the point where people are bringing you coffee.
That was probably one of the, like, maybe my 5th season on Big Brother, when that really started to happen and I started to be more in charge of things and part of the executive team. Yeah, maybe like my 4th or 5th season on Big Brother. I think my 4th season on Big Brother.
So, but you didn't start as a showrunner there. What was the progression from season 1 to season 11?
Well, Big Brother is hard to explain on, we'd need a whole other show to explain how that's produced. But it's a massive team because it's 24 hours a day. It airs 3 nights a week with 1 live show every week. So the staff is massive. So there's 3 producing teams of 10 producers each. So my first gig at Big Brother, I was like the lowest producer on one of those 10 teams or 3 teams. And then the next season I got promoted, and the next season after that I got promoted. And then I was running one of those teams. So that was like my 4th season where I was running one of the 3 teams.
In the 4th season. Okay.
So suddenly I had like, people working under me.
Bringing you coffee, maybe. But okay, just for those people tuning in, you don't know, I'm talking with Jerry D'Alessandro. He's a television producer, travel addict, and former rock star from the clubs of New York City and New Jersey. And he joins me from his home in Merida, Mexico, in the Yucatan. So we're looking right now at our audience here and what shows that people have seen that you've produced. In the poll over here, it looks like more people on our webcast today have seen The Amazing Race, and then I guess American Idol comes in second. And people definitely have tuned into Good Spirits and The Voyager. So not so much. Oh, there we go. We got some Big Brother coming in. That we'll keep that live for a bit as people see the poll there.
Cool.
So tell me about then Big Brother. We know it's a reality TV show. Let's talk. I know we already had somebody up there who wants to know what's the, we call it unscripted in the, in the TV world. Sometimes competition shows, because some of these cross the line between, they're all unscripted. But you've done a lot of competition. Amazing Race is competition. American Idol is competition. And really, Big Brother was a competition to see who could last the longest in that house.
Yeah, I kind of, what happens is you end up kind of falling into like some genre. You get your first job somewhere, or one of the jobs you get somewhere leads to another job on a show like that, which then you start to, so I became like a competition guy. Like I was a competition show producer. And then because of my extended period of time on Big Brother, I became like a house reality competition guy. So I was doing pilots in my off time from Big Brother for other networks that wanted to do similar shows to Big Brother.
Okay.
They'd call me because now I was the house reality guy.
You're the house reality guy. So
yeah.
let's talk about in reality TV. A lot of people that haven't been either behind the camera or in front of the camera in one of those shows, everybody knows what they're about. And there's always this question. I mean, even though we know Big Brother is unscripted, there is this photo that I was showing earlier. That's the script manual. So
well, that's because Big Brother has a live show every week. So the live show has a script. Because our host, Julie Chen, she was reading a teleprompter because we're live.
Got it.
That show actually had a script meeting every week and a script, and, because it airs 3 nights a week and one of those shows is live every week.
But let's talk about really what is real, what is fake. How much can you, pull back the curtain for us a little bit, Jerry, and say what's really going on? How much of this stuff do you try to coerce or make happen versus obviously there's going to be natural things that happen, but you got to produce a show at the end of the day, and you don't have, you had a lot of time with Big Brother, but other shows you don't.
Well, a good rule of thumb is anything with $1 a prize at the end, like $1 million or $500,000, any sort of monetary prize, it falls under Gameshow rules, which is federally regulated. So Amazing Race, Survivor, Big Brother, they have to be above board. They're all very, very real, because if you start to tamper with the game at all or, manipulate things, in a very overt way, you go to federal prison. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you remember that movie Quiz Show, which was about the tampering. Ever since that moment of that thing that actually happened.
That was in the 50s too, right? That was, yeah.
So now game shows are they're federally mandated. So everything is so all of those shows are very real. The only thing we can do as producers on that show is when we're doing interviews, we can ask the right questions. So we can ask things in a way that we hope it plants something in their mind, or, they start to think the way we want them to. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
so the judge would say, stop with the leading questions, objection overruled.
And it's funny that you said that, because on Big Brother, because it's this giant compound, we would all have monitors in our offices, and we could watch the producers doing interviews up in the control room. And sometimes we would call the booth and say, back up on that line of questioning. You're crossing a line. We would tell them.
Okay. Interesting. I want to get back to travel for a little bit, but I wanted to kind of show some of the photos I have of you from your days in the television world there. American Idol. So who was the winner that season or so that you were in? What can you tell?
That was season 10. That's the year that Scotty McCreery won. And the judges at that time were J-Lo, Steven Tyler, and Randy Jackson was still on the show.
Randy Jackson. Okay. So how is it interacting with I mean, you're metal guy, you love Aerosmith, I'm sure, and there's Steven Tyler, man. Did you ever just have a conversation?
He's a very cool guy. Very cool guy, and just loves people and loves music. Any chance he got to just during rehearsals, in between stuff on rehearsal, he'd jump behind the piano and just start singing. I mean, he just loves it. Loves entertaining.
Great. Yeah. And J-Lo?
J-Lo's super nice, but a little more reserved. She's a superstar. She's not out there mingling too much. Yeah. But she's very nice.
Okay, tell us about this picture right here. What's this? What show are we on here?
This is Big Brother. So Big Brother, the competitions, because it's all contained to a house, we transform the yard 3 times a week for these competitions. And Big Brother's a little more campy. It's a little less serious than Survivor. It's a little more campy. So the competitions are usually very colorful, and their themes are kind of silly sometimes. There's a lot of contestants getting messy, and so this was I don't remember the competition, but this was a head of household competition. These are both from Big Brother as well. More set stuff.
I see that they oversize things, like the strawberry, the Neapolitan sundae over here is extra, and then you got the big thing. What was the surfboard about?
That was a head of household competition also, and basically they all had to stand on those surfboards, and those surfboards moved this way and this way, and then they got doused with water, and it was basically an endurance competition.
Endurance and balance, huh? Yeah.
So for hours, they would just be up there until the last person was standing. This is from a crab boat shooting the Voyager somewhere out in Alaska. This is in Thailand shooting Good Spirits. This was on the island of Madeira shooting Good Spirits.
Madeira, a great...
This also on the island of Madeira.
Speaking of Madeira, I did pour a glass of wine. I know Jerry doesn't drink because I think he had enough drinking in the rock and roll years, enough for a couple lifetimes, I'm guessing. But you having a juice or a water? What do you got?
I got some sparkling water.
All right. Well, here, cheers. Let's toast to travel and you're now in Merida, and it's funny because the word mierda You know what that means?
I do.
Yeah. Well, so it's weird when I say that. Okay, so we're moving into the travel. Here you are. I guess this is with Josh?
Yeah, this was the Voyager. This was on top of a glacier, Mount Denali.
Oh, in Alaska. Okay, and that's Denali? Oh, wow. Cool.
Same place. We you take a plane up there. Very cool. Really? And this was Juneau at like 10 p.m.
Yeah, it's very dark out, huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk about travel. And I assume this is in Thailand, right? No, this is Cuba.
No, this is Thailand.
It is Thailand. Okay.
Yeah. This was Singapore.
Yep. What was your crew like?
The crew they were rock stars. They were great. Small crew, both shows. We had a crew of 8, maybe, me and seven others. And yeah, they were, our director of photography had done a lot of war reporting back in his early days. So he was covering conflict zones in like Somalia and stuff. So he was, shooting the Voyager was like, nothing.
Yeah.
So anything we asked, he would do whatever he needed to do to get the shot. Sometimes stuff I didn't want him to do because I didn't think it was safe. And he was just like, don't worry about it.
So having shot these great shows and, now everybody's locked down, everybody's worried about what is the future of travel? And you and I have talked about this offline. And what is it going to look like? And how will that relate to the future of television shows? Besides the shows that you've produced, what travel shows have inspired you? And you've been to 63 countries. You're a wanderer, no question.
Yeah.
Well, who has inspired you, and where are we going?
Bourdain. Bourdain was, I think he inspired all of us. And
Amen.
It was, I was a big fan of his from the very beginning, but then really when he did his new show, Parts Unknown, like that just blew me away and changed. I mean, just when I got the opportunity to do the shows I did, with whatever budget I had, it was always, how can we make this like Parts Unknown? How can we make it as close to Parts Unknown as, our budget will allow?
Very cinematic and
yeah. And, so what Bourdain did was, to me, the end all be all of travel shows. There'll never be another travel show like that. And, also for me, he inspired me in my personal life too. I mean, my whole thing became like trying to beat him places. I would be like, oh, well, he never did an episode in Iran. We went to Iran before he did. Oh my God. Like, it's kind of like a competition where how can I beat Bourdain somewhere?
You were the competition reality guy after all, you got to kind of pull this into life. Yeah, no question about that. Now, what would Bourdain say about this lockdown?
God, something way more eloquent than I would ever be able to say.
He's a great writer. Yeah.
But, I'm sure he'd find some cool twist to it. I'm sure he would. And, I think we talked about this offline. I'm not sure where travel will go after this and how long it's going to take for it to recover. I know I'm eager to jump on a plane tomorrow if they'll let me, but I know a lot of people are scared and it's going to take them a while. And as far as travel shows, you and I know from pitching your show around town, that everyone gives us this same spiel that no one wants to watch travel shows and no one likes to watch other people travel. I don't understand that because Bourdain, everyone loved Bourdain, everyone watched his show. And every time, like when I did the Voyager, we would get a ton of viewers on Saturday morning. People do want to watch those shows, and Samantha Brown has been on for how long? And Rick Steves has a show for how long? I mean, people watch that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the networks have this mentality, but I don't know if that's going to make it worse, this COVID problem, or if people are going to want to start watching that stuff because they're going to feel like, well, if I can't go, at least I can kind of live vicariously through this show, so maybe it'll be good for travel shows. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that some of the people you just mentioned, by the way, Rudy Maxa is in the room tonight, and he's asking some questions. We're going to get to that in a minute, but Rudy is he's been doing travel shows, and he's got a radio show on like 400 stations. And I mean, this guy's been around the world, I don't know how many times. And he had Rick Steves on. He's doing a thing called, what's it again? It's I Was Thinking, Rudy Maxa. And he had Samantha Brown on, he had Rick Steves, and he also had Andrew Zimmern, another great travel host. And I've been watching his webcast. They're on Thursdays noon in California time. So tune into to Rudy as well. He's a great travel host, and we'll talk to him sometime on this show as well about that future. I mean, the problem here is not the whole country, just like in the United States and in Mexico, and all the states have individual times that they're opening up. So imagine you got to go from you fly from Mexico and you're going to Uzbekistan, but you got to transfer a flight in Frankfurt, and there you're like in Frankfurt, but now you're here. We have to quarantine you for 2 weeks before you can go anywhere. And then you go to Uzbekistan, you cruise around, and they're going to quarantine you before you can go out there. So now I've always been okay with long. When I travel for months at a time, typically 3 or 4 months.
Some people can't though.
I know. So maybe they're going to stay home and just watch people vicariously travel that have that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Let's keep the idea of the travel. Yeah, and we start with wine. Oh, Rudy just says he starts with wine. He actually opens the wine at the beginning of the show for Rudy Max's thing. Let's see. Anne was asking, what advice would you give to start connecting with the Merida lifestyle? She says she spent some time in the Yucatan, but not Merida, and she really liked Puerto Morelos. It's been about 15 years. She planned to explore this year, and now she's locked down. What advice would you give her?
Start connecting with the Merida lifestyle. Well, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good Facebook groups, like expat groups on Facebook. That's the quickest and easiest way, kind of in and to learn what's happening and what's how to get around and where to get things. So any expat or anybody thinking of being an expat here, if you get on those groups as soon as possible, start asking questions or even just reading what's been already asked. You can, from day one, you kind of know, like, oh, I have 3 choices of dentists that all speak English. I have, you can get this at this store. You just know that stuff.
That stuff's
real quickly.
Hey, I just want to also say we've got him going back. Julia Stewart, stuck in calle 64, and she's calls for opening a beer. I see Terry's joining us from New Zealand. Brian in Raleigh, North Carolina. Somebody here also asked, when is it time for a Dread
reunion?
Yeah.
that can't happen.
And what about, Rudy's asking, what do you know about the bandmates? Where are they, and where have their journeys led them?
Well, we're all still friends. The bass player is my closest friend still, actually. He still lives in New Jersey, and we actually go see metal shows together around the world. So, we're still very close. The drummer is now a tennis pro at a country club. The singer is a tattoo artist. He lives in Oregon.
An Oregon tattoo artist. Awesome.
He has his own shop. And the only one still playing music is the lead guitar player, Matt. He moved to Austria, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and married an Austrian girl and puts out albums in Europe and tours all over Europe. So he's the only one that still plays.
James Carroll's asking about reality TV. Has it gotten better or worse? And why?
I think it's definitely gotten worse. Things are more corporate now, which is one of the reasons that leaving early suddenly felt right, because it used to be a lot of fun. When I first got in, back in 98 or whatever, it was like the Wild West. It was so much fun, and there was a lot of creativity and a lot of, they would just kind of task you with, hey, we're making this show. And they would just say, go make it. And they'd hire the right people, and you just go make something out of nothing. And then over time, the big corporations started to buy the small production companies, and it all became very corporate and very controlled, to the point where every network exec wanted to know every single thing you were doing at every moment. And, it stopped being fun. So
yeah,
from the behind the scenes standpoint, it got worse, terrible. In front of the camera, like what people are actually watching now, I think it got worse because they just started to need content so much, because now there's so many platforms that they don't care. They actually don't care about quality. I mean, I've actually had network execs say to me, I would say, like on the Voyager, perfect example, I was getting kind of reprimanded about something that I was like a little too hard on the crew because we were trying to do this thing. And I said, but I just want to make it great. And they're like, don't worry about it. Sometimes it's like baseball. Sometimes you hit a home run, sometimes you don't. And I was just like, really? Like that's what we're doing? Like, just kind of like
dialing it in.
So, yeah. And I think there's a lot of that now, because they just need content. And what they ultimately, and unfortunately they're right, there's a lot of, the viewer's not going to notice that.
People are consuming so much on a screen this size too,
Yeah.
This is crazy, and vertically like this, a lot of this YouTube. Brian is asking, he says, there's so many different distribution channels these days. Do you think that a show like Allan's would be a better fit for a streaming service rather than a traditional cable or network?
Well, Allan and I actually took his show to some streaming services. I think it would be great on a streaming service, but they feel the same. I mean,
what was the thing that Netflix said? Netflix did, it was a very interesting response. They said they didn't even want to see it, right? What was that?
Netflix wouldn't even take the meeting. But Amazon, you remember Amazon? We pitched to Amazon, and we had a very good meeting with them, and
great meeting.
But ultimately, they passed, and it's the same. It's a little not right for the network. We're not really looking for travel. No one's really interested in travel these days. It was all the same.
Yeah, and it's weird for me, for those of you who ever tune into the Travel Channel, it has no relation to the Travel Channel of 10 years ago, where Bourdain was on his last season or so, and that it's all about mysteries and paranormal and searching for silly stuff, and that's why I was asking about the fakeness. I mean, Josh Gates, God bless you, I love you. But, you're sitting there in the woods and everybody's got their headlamp on and they've been looking for the 8-inch spider, whatever it is. And all of a sudden there's a rustle in there and they all jump like this and go, what was that? What was that? I mean, it just to me seems so campy and fake that it's anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say it. Look, like the shows that I was doing, the competition shows, those are real because they have to be. The travel shows, those are real. I mean, we pre-produce like what Josh is going to be doing, and you're going to meet with this chef, but then it's just kind of action, and they go and they have a conversation. So that's real. But The Bachelor, all those housewife shows, I mean, those are totally scripted for the most part. I mean, they're all producers saying, "Go say this. You should go." Fight for this. You should do this. Do you know what she said about you? I mean, there's a lot of that. Yeah. So a lot of those shows, because the networks now also, they don't want to spend the money, so they need stuff to happen quickly. There's no more like, it used to be kind of like you would just follow real people, and over the course of a month or two, you'd slowly get content. But now they need we need it in 2 weeks. You got to shoot the whole episode in 2 weeks. So, in order to do that, you just have to make stuff happen. So maybe you'll watch the first few minutes, and if nothing's happening, you go in there and you start telling them, this is what has to happen. You need to say this, you need to do this, and you guys need to get into a fight.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. Hey, Karen and Roy, they've got two different questions. I'm going to kind of blend these two together because it's something I've been meaning to ask. Karen wants to comment on the pros and cons of being an expat, while Roy is like, well, what's next for Jerry? He's too young for retirement, to be an expat retiree. And I will add to that. So this is a big thing. And I know we're running a little bit over here. We're just going to go a couple minutes. Stick with us. I appreciate everybody sticking around. Would you... Part of that question, wrap in then, what would ever make you return, come back to the States to live, and why?
I don't know that we come back to the States to live. I always said when we moved here, if the perfect opportunity came along, as far as like a Bourdain style travel show that someone wanted me to go run.
Well, we're going to do the motorcycle Bourdain kind of thing. We're going to.
Yeah, so if we could sell your show, I will come out of retirement and I will go produce that. And if I have to live in the States for a month or two to do that, I will. But as far as like my wife and I moving back to the States, I don't know that we will. Whether or not we stay in Merida for the rest of our lives, I don't know. Maybe we'll move and try that. But for now, Merida's our home. We love it here. This is where we are. Pros of being an expat. It's like I said, you have an instant community, and every day is kind of like vacation in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for every expat, but for me, I wake up, I'm in Mexico, I go get coffee, I go get breakfast, I experience the culture every day. It's cool. Cons are, Mexico has a lot of similarities, which is nice. Like we have Costco and we have Home Depot. So if I need something, I can find it. But there's things I can't get here. Like we don't have, when I moved here, I was a vegan. Now I'm a vegetarian because it's too hard to be a vegan here because we don't have 1,000 vegan restaurants like I did in LA, and we don't have Whole Foods. So there's cons. I mean, it's a different country. So you got to put up with, the way your houses are built are very different. The climate is really harsh and kind of breaks things on your house every day. And it's crazy, so there's cons, but it's like, I think that's with anything.
Yeah. Amazon Prime.
We don't have Amazon Prime. We have Netflix.
You have Netflix. Hey, Kathy's asking, how easy or hard do you think it is for a single senior woman to put down roots in Merida?
Super easy. My wife and I have made friends with so many single ladies here, and they are doing great. I mean, some of our best friends here are older single women that live here now, and they have a great community, and things are easy for them. I would say if they're looking for another husband or boyfriend, that's probably a little harder because there's much more of them than single older men.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great place. It's the second safest city in the world. It's a very safe place to be, Merida.
Second safest.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't believe we've already gone about 5 minutes over here, and I knew this would happen. It always happens on these Journeys webcasts. Any last bit of advice for nomadic wanderers, or even those just looking to have a good vacation again? Just last thing before we get off the line here.
I mean, for me, honestly, it's always been about, I think as Americans, especially, we are taught to live in fear. Like everything is scary out there. Like stay in America because everything's scary. I don't believe that. And I think if you go outside your comfort zone and explore the world outside of the States, there's some amazing things and really, really nice, friendly, incredible people. You know, people don't believe me, but we were treated the nicest we were ever treated, and the warmest welcome we ever had was in Iran. They were so nice to us, and we never felt in danger at all. We felt nothing but taken care of by the locals, because their culture is, you are a guest in my my country, and I need to take care of you. I need to look after you. So we actually ended up at a couple's house for dinner. Like just a young couple wanted to have us over to their house. You know, what American would invite two strangers into their house? Like probably none I know of. So I think just don't be afraid to get outside your comfort zone. And you don't have to jump right to Iran, but you know, start getting out and exploring things that make you a little bit uncomfortable. And I think you'll be surprised what you find.
It's find how much comfort you can find in uncomfort, for sure. Because once you've been able to break through that mental barrier that you've created for yourself and go, oh my God, it's there. And I 100% agree. Great point to bring up. And I always say that, and I alluded to this at the very beginning, is if you set out to see what's wrong with the world, you're going to see what's wrong. But if you set out to see what's right with the world, you are going to see that. So it takes perspective. It takes pushing yourself a little out of that comfort zone. And my mantra has always been, stay curious, ask questions, wonder why, and never, ever stop exploring. And that's why we're all on this journey. And I want to hear more about Journeys. We've had great people join us, Jerry. This is great. People are, Tom says there's nothing to fear. What you said there is triggering a cool thread of new comments here on the chat side. But with that, I better close down the 5th episode of the Journeys webcast. And this will be up. People may be even tuning into this, hearing the recording on YouTube after. So if you came in late and you want to see the earlier stuff, it will be on YouTube. I actually do repurpose the audio portions of this on my podcast. We take out anything related to the video, of course. So there's a lot of different ways to go back and see the other episodes of Journeys. And next week, I'm happy to say that Ashley Colburn, who is an Emmy Award-winning travel host, who is also an expat who lives now in Croatia, she's going to be my guest. And she's done some great work, and she's a travel expert as well. So next week, it'll be 3 p.m. Ashley Colburn of Ashley Colburn Productions, Emmy Award-winning host. It's going to be awesome. Jerry, thanks so much for tuning in and taking time from the COVID-19 lockdown there in Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. But we'll do this again. I think we didn't get to everything we wanted to talk about, so maybe I could get you back.
Yeah, I'll come back anytime.
All right. So thank you, everybody. Please go to YouTube at WorldRider and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm on this mission to get whatever it is, 1,000 followers, I think is what I need. And it would be real great if you guys would go over there, watch a couple of the old episodes, and enjoy. Stay safe. Keep smiling and remain sane. This is Allan Karl. You've been watching the 5th episode of Journeys Webcast with Jerry D'Alessandro, live from Merida, Mexico in the Yucatan. Thank you. I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Journeys Webcast. I'm Allan Karl, your host. Be sure to tune us in every Monday. The time changes depending on where we are in the world. This is Allan Karl, and where will your next journey take you?